Namaskar students. Today we'll be starting with respiration in humans. In the previous session we have learned about this term respiration, that is oxidation of food. When oxygen inhaled, it combines with the food to release energy, carbon dioxide and water. So how does this process occurs in human body? So there are different organs that help us in this process. Now when the plants they are doing photosynthesis, they release different gases. We studied in the process of photosynthesis they release oxygen, but during respiration they release carbon dioxide. So similar thing happens with human beings also. When we inhale, we utilize the oxygen from the inhaled air and release out carbon dioxide. Now this inhaled air which is containing oxygen, it combines with the hemoglobin of our blood. Now how does this all steps occur, that we'll study in detail. Here is a slide showing you the different respiratory organs involved in human beings in the process of respiration. So this process starts from the nostrils. From the nostrils the air enters to the windpipe, which we call as trachea. Now this trachea or the windpipe, it enters into the lungs, but before entering it divides it into two parts, that is bronchi or what we call as bronchus. Now this bronchi, it is going to split further into bronchioles into each lung. Human body has a pair of lungs, right lung and left lung. There the bronchi enters and bronchi itself branches into bronchioles and ends up into tiny air sacs called as alveoli. Each lung contains around 300 million alveoli. Yes, they are very small air sac structures which actually it is the site where the gaseous exchange is going to occur. At the base you can see the diaphragm. Diaphragm is a muscular partition that separates the upper part of the human body from the lower. That is, thoracic cavity is separated from the abdominal cavity. The lungs, they are safely located in the body and protected by the rib cage. Now when we breathe in, what happens? The air enters to the nostrils. Nostrils, they have a layer of mucus so that it traps the dust particles. It has hair lining also, which also helps in trapping the dust particles so that the dirt doesn't enters our body. Now the nasal cavity is also lined by a lot of blood vessels which helps in maintaining the temperature of the air which we are inhaling. Once the air has been inhaled, now this is going to enter our lungs. This process is called inhalation. Now what happens during inhalation? During inhalation, we want more of the air to enter inside. So the volume of the thoracic cavity should be increased. Yes. So to increase that, the diaphragm starts contracting and it starts moving down to increase the space of the thoracic cavity. So the muscles also which help in this process, they are called as intercostal muscles. Rib cage, I told you, which is the outer covering of this rib cage is a part of skeleton which protects our lungs. So this rib cage starts moving upwards and outwards. So the volume is increased and more of the air enters our lungs. Now during exhalation, that is when we are taking the air out, the intercostal muscles, they again help us by contraction and relaxation. Rib cage which went upwards, now it will move downwards and inwards to decrease the volume of the thoracic cavity so that the volume is decreased and we are able to expel the air out. This process is called as exhalation. Now, when we have inhaled the air was rich in oxygen content. The percentage of air which we are taking in is around 21%. Now this 21% oxygen, this we want to be absorbed by our body. It is not that whole of the amount will be absorbed, but yes, some percentage of oxygen is going to be absorbed. So when this oxygen is going to be absorbed, it is actually absorbed at the point where we have air sacs, or what we call as alveoli. Here in this slide you can see a magnified view. The bronchi is being divided into different bronchioles. Now bronchioles, they are ending up into globular sac like structures, air sacs, alveoli. Now these alveoli, they are supplied with rich amount of blood vessels. Now these blood vessels, they will exchange the gas. Oxygen will be absorbed, and carbon dioxide, which has been brought from all the body cells, that will be given back, so that the amount of carbon dioxide will be more in the exhaled air. Yes, when we inhaled the air, carbon dioxide content was 0.03%. But when we are exhaling, it increases to around 4.4%. And in the exhaled air, we may have around 16.4% of oxygen. Although when we inhaled, it was 21%, the remaining percentage we have absorbed. Now this oxygen, which has been absorbed by the blood vessels, it will be sent to the whole of our body. Here this slide is showing you the magnified view of alveoli, how the blood vessel is closely situated to this alveoli, from where it is going to absorb the oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Because oxygen will be absorbed and supplied to the body cells, and carbon dioxide will be released out through our nostrils. This is how respiration occurs in human body. Now we have two types of respiration. Yes, aerobic, that is in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic, that occurs in the absence of oxygen. Yes, now you might be wondering how respiration occurs in absence of oxygen. This thing you must have experienced when we run a lot. We sometimes feel muscular cramps in our legs. Why? Because our body was not able to quickly break down the glucose. Instead, it led to the partial breakdown of glucose. So when the glucose breaks down partially, it forms lactic acid. Lactic acid gets accumulated in our muscles, which leads to cramping. This can be simply reduced by applying oil massage or a hot water bath. There the the lactic acid will be further broken down into simplest units, and we will be relieved of the pain. Now in some organisms also, like yeast is a microorganism which respires anaerobically. That is absence of oxygen. Yes, this is a common example which we apply in our kitchen also. Dry yeast powder is used for fermentation because yeast releases alcohol. It respires anaerobically and it releases alcohol, which causes our batter, our dough, if we are using it for making, let's say, a pizza dough or a bread dough, it helps in fermentation and it's help in making our dough more smooth. So your dish lands up very nicely cooked and baked. So these were few examples of anaerobic respiration. So what is the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration? Aerobic respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen. It occurs in the mitochondria of the cells. Mitochondria is the cell organelle, which is also called as the powerhouse of the cell because it releases energy. Aerobic respiration produces a lot of ATP molecules if you compare it to anaerobic respiration, because anaerobic respiration occurs in the cytoplasm of the cells in the absence of oxygen. Aerobic respiration is used when heart rate, breathing rate, they rise. See, when we are running or when we are doing extreme strenuous physical activity, the heart rate of the person increases. Why? The breathing rate also increases. The person starts taking deeper breaths because the body requires more energy, and this more energy is we are going to get it from when we are going to inhale a lot of oxygen, so that the glucose could be broken down. Glucose could be oxidized to release more energy. So here we conclude our session. We have learned about the respiratory system in human beings. The respiratory organs that assist in this process are nostrils. The air enters from our nostrils to the trachea or the windpipe, which branches itself into bronchi. Each bronchi enters the left and the right lung, where it branches further itself into bronchioles. And in the end, we have got alveoli or the air sacs, where the actual exchange of the gases will occur. Oxygen will be absorbed from the air and carbon dioxide is going to be released out. We learned about the different types of respiration, that is cellular respiration, that occurs at the cellular level, that is when the air or the oxygen food to release energy. Then we have learned about two different types of respiration, anaerobic and aerobic. Aerobic respiration occurs in the presence of air and it releases a lot of ATP molecules if you compare it to anaerobic respiration, which occurs in the absence of oxygen. This much for today. Thank you.